I am 31 years old, serving as the Asia-Pacific Compliance Audit Director for a multinational restaurant group. I oversee financial audits for 12 stores, and the profit and loss statements I've handled outnumber the price tags most people see in a supermarket. I can sniff out irregularities in the third clause of the 17th page of a supplier contract, just as a firefighter can detect smoke before a building goes up in flames. My job isn't to generate profit, but to uncover money that should have been there but never arrived. This work has taught me one thing: the numbers on the books never lie, the ones who manipulate them always do. I started working at a Chinese buffet restaurant as a cashier at 18, switched to night inventory at 19, became a regional audit assistant at 21, earned my CPA license at 25, and became the group's youngest compliance director at 28. I'm not wealthy. I own a 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, with 8 years left on the mortgage. I have an index fund account I contribute to monthly, and one sole luxury: Kenyan AA-grade hand-pour coffee beans. I grind them myself, brew them myself, with no sugar or milk. When I eat out, I always drink hot water, not for health reasons, but because hot water never appears on the bill. Growing up in an environment where every penny had to be stretched, you develop an instinct: never give anyone the chance to hold you hostage through your own spending. This ability is about to be turned on my own family. So, when my parents, after 4 years of complete silence, sent me a message through a family group chat I'd long been kicked out of, inviting me home for a reunion dinner to mend the rift, I should have first asked one question: besides the two of you, who else will be at that table? But I didn't ask. They thought they knew me. They thought I was still that 18-year-old Vera who stood behind the cash register for 14 hours straight and handed over her entire paycheck without a word. They didn't anticipate the reply I would type under that message, or the truth that was about to shatter my father's garment factory within the next 72 hours. Before that dinner, before I drove 50 minutes to Xinhua Pavilion, before my father tried to push a guarantee contract with interest higher than the principal across the table to me, I have to tell you who I was on that afternoon when the message came. Because the person they were counting on was exactly that version of me. And that version I had already killed with my own hands. 4 years ago, my sister Jenna decided to open a boutique bakery. No market research, no cost estimates, not even a clue about what percentage of revenue the rent should account for, just because she had eaten a cream croissant at a trendy shop during a trip to Seoul. I can replicate it, she said at 24, having just quit her job as an administrative clerk, with a resume gap of over 7 months. She needed $600,000 in startup capital. The bank was willing to lend $400,000, the remaining $200,000 required a cosigner. That joint guarantor should be me. My dad brought it up at the family dinner, in that tone of "it's already settled." He sat at the head of the round table, chopsticks holding a piece of braised pork belly, not looking at me. Vera handles the money at the company. What's so hard about being a guarantor? Jenna is your own sister. My mom, sitting beside him while adding food to my sister's bowl, chimed in: sisters should help each other out, it's only right. It's only right, those 3 words have a fixed translation in my family. It's only right for Vera. I asked my sister for a business plan. She glared at me, as if I were asking for a sacred text. I asked about her projected profit margins, payback period, and supply chain plan. She started rolling her eyes, saying, "Sis, do you have to?" I asked what her backup plan was if the cash flow in the first 3 months wasn't enough to cover the loan. She threw down her chopsticks. "You just look down on me. You don't believe I can make it. Just because you studied and got your certifications, you think you're something, right?" My father slammed the bowl down on the table. "Are you going to help or not?" I said I had to read the complete plan before signing. It was standard compliance procedure, and it had nothing to do with family ties. My mother put down her chopsticks and spoke in that tone I'd heard since childhood: "When you had a fever as a kid, your sister gave you her fever medicine. Now she's in trouble, and you're talking to her about compliance?" The fever medicine incident did happen. I was 7 that year, Jenna was 5. But she probably forgot, that box of medicine was originally borrowed from the neighbors by our parents, and in the end, we split it half and half, both of us drinking it. What she said right was that after taking it, both our fevers went down. But where she was wrong was that it was never about giving in. I still said no. Not because I didn't love Jenna, of course I did. But I'd spent 8 years in compliance auditing and had seen too many small business owners sink their life savings into the bubble of trendy shops. I knew all too well what a bakery's proofing box looked like at 3 in the morning when you couldn't pay off a $600,000 debt, pitch black, dead silent, the dough slowly collapsing inside, while collection calls wouldn't wait an extra day just because you had a dream of opening a store. My father stood up. He said something that kept that door shut for 4 years. If you don't treat this family as family, then this family has no place for you. I drove back to my own apartment. The next morning, I was kicked out of the family group chat. No notice. No phone call. No message. The group was still there, my sister, my parents, and 7 cousins and aunts were all still in it, but I was gone. My profile picture disappeared, my name vanished, as if someone who had never existed had been cut out of the family album. 4 years. 4 years without a single phone call. Not a single message. On my mom's birthday, I sent a red envelope through Alipay, but the recipient never accepted it, and it was automatically returned 24 hours later. Jenna's bakery had been open for 11 months when it quietly shut its doors one Wednesday afternoon. I knew because her business partner posted a moment on WeChat, with a picture of the dismantled oven and the words "selling at a loss." I didn't like that post. I even unfriended that partner. Over those 4 years, I chewed over, digested, and expelled the fact of being disowned by the family, writing it off like bad debt, one item at a time. The first year, I missed them so much my stomach ached. The second year, I hated them so much I couldn't sleep. The third year, I began to accept something. What they needed wasn't Vera, they needed Vera's wallet, Vera's credit, Vera's signature on every guarantee contract. And the day I refused to keep playing the ATM was the day that machine got unplugged. My therapist, Dr. Elizabeth, once said to me, "You taught them that you would always pay the bill. That wasn't your fault, it was a survival skill you learned from the age of 7. But still paying that bill at 31? That was a choice you made yourself." After she said that, I sat in her office in complete silence for a full 4 minutes. The 4th year, my mom's message popped up. That afternoon, I was in the office reviewing a renewal contract for a frozen food supplier. Their gross margin had inexplicably risen by 4 percentage points in the 3rd quarter, and I needed to know whether it was the result of cost-cutting or financial fraud. My phone vibrated. I looked down, and it felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed the area just beneath my ribs. Family, the group chat I had been removed from 4 years ago, showed a notification. Vera has been added to the group chat. I stared at that notification for 2 minutes. I tapped on it. The group was still there, the name still the one my mom had chosen back then, "Harmony brings prosperity to the family," with a little sun emoji. The chat history was empty. That meant they had either cleared everything, or, more likely, they had created a new group without me, and this one was just a temporary reception hall. My mom's message read, "Vera, Mom and Dad miss you. We've been doing a lot of reflecting lately, and we want to invite you back for a meal, so our family can have a proper talk. Just the 4 of us, me, your dad, you, and Jenna. Mom will cook herself." Right after that, a second message, "Harmony brings prosperity to the family, don't you think? Harmony brings prosperity to the family." In my family, those 5 words had always meant only one thing, "Vera, the prerequisite for harmony bringing prosperity is that you foot the bill." I didn't reply. I turned my phone face down on the desk and went back to reviewing the supplier contract. It wasn't until I realized I'd been staring at the same line of numbers for 7 minutes that I picked up my phone and typed 4 words, "I'll be there." Then I went back to work, pretending my hands weren't trembling slightly. My deputy director, Fiona, advised me not to go. The next day at lunch, she sat across from me and said 8 words, "This is a trap. Don't be foolish." My assistant auditor, Leo, also tried to talk me out of it, even more succinctly, just 2 words, sis, don't. I said I'd already set my rules. This meal would last at most 2 hours, no talk of money, no signing anything, no acting as a guarantor. The moment something felt off, I'd put down my chopsticks and leave. I even wrote these rules on a sticky note and stuck it on the mirror in my apartment's entryway. 1 meal, then home. Fiona looked at me like I was a patient who knew full well they were about to run headfirst into a wall but was going anyway. She said, "You know exactly what they're calling you back for." I said I knew. "Then why are you still going?" I hesitated for a moment, then told the truth. "I want to see my mom. Not the master strategist dispatcher, but the woman who used to make dumplings for me when I was little, humming Sweet Honey as she kneaded the dough." Fiona didn't try to persuade me further. Xinhua Pavilion was located on a commercial street in the east of the city, a street I hadn't visited in 3 years. It was the quintessential venue for business banquets, rosewood furniture, crystal chandeliers, private rooms with their own restrooms, waitresses and cheongsams, and a menu where at least 40% of the price paid for the experience of sitting in a place like this. When the navigation showed 15 minutes remaining, I started to slow down. Not because of traffic. It was because I saw the shops along the street changing, one by one, from what I remembered. That hardware store had turned into a milk tea shop. That supermarket had become a pharmacy. Only the sign for Xinhua Pavilion still glowed, red characters on a gold background, exactly the same as 4 years ago. In the parking lot, I recognized 3 cars. My dad's silver gray Camry, I could recite its license plate number with my eyes closed. My mom's white Fit, with a scratch on the rear bumper that I never mentioned. And Jenna's Mini, plastered with cartoon stickers. After the bakery closed, this car was still here. Then I spotted my uncle's black Tiguan, my third uncle's pickup truck, my cousin's white Golf, and 2 other cars I couldn't identify. "It's just the 4 of us," my mom's message said. I sat in the car for a minute and a half. The engine was off, the window rolled down, and the early autumn wind carried the smell of a barbecue restaurant from the parking lot. I stared at the sticky note on the steering wheel, which read, 1 meal, then go home. The wisest choice would be to back out now, drive 50 minutes back to my own apartment, cook a bowl of noodles, watch an episode of a variety show, and completely forget about tonight. But I was 31 years old, having spent 3 years and 11 months learning not to run away from tables like this anymore. I straightened my shirt, patted my pocket, and confirmed it only held my car keys and phone, no wallet, just a credit card with enough limit to cover my share of the bill, tied to an independent bank account shared with no one. I locked the car and walked toward the glass door. The front door was heavy, the brass handle cold to the touch. The lobby was filled with the aroma of roast duck and osmanthus glutinous rice lotus root. The hostesses, dressed in dark red cheongsams, wore smiles as standardized as if they had been photocopied from a training manual. The receptionist checked her tablet. "Ms. Vera, Plum Garden Room, I'll show you the way." She picked up a single menu and led me through the lobby, down a hallway carpeted in dark red. Before she even pushed open the door to the Plum Garden Room, I could hear the noise. Laughter, the clinking of glasses, my uncle's unmistakably booming voice talking about some investment. The moment the door swung open, I saw a large round table that could seat 18. 17 chairs were filled, leaving only 1 empty seat, directly across from my father. A white tablecloth, 6 cold dishes on the Lazy Susan, and a simmering soup pot in front of each person. I recognized what was inside: flour chicken soup, the signature dish of Xinhua Pavilion, priced at 388 per serving. At the center of the table sat an already opened bottle of Feitian Maotai, tilted in an ice bucket, a third of it already gone. They had already been at it for over an hour. My father was the first to stand up. He was wearing that dark blue jacket I'd seen before, his hair dyed an unnatural black. He smiled, that same smile I remembered, the one that said he had everything under control. "Vera's here. Come on, sit down." My mother followed suit, rising and taking my hand, her eyes rimmed with red. "You've lost weight." She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on me for less than 2 seconds before settling back on my face, like a competent host confirming the star of the show had arrived. Applause broke out, scattered and thin. My uncle led it, my third uncle joined in, and my cousin held up her phone, filming something or other. Jenna sat to my father's right, a glass of red wine in her hand. She gave me a smile, a cold, thin smile, like a slow-motion replay of the expression she'd worn the day she threw down her chopsticks. I sat down. The empty seat was at the far end of the round table, directly across from my dad. The positioning was clever, far enough that everyone had to quiet down to hear what you said, yet close enough that every dish passed your way required you to reach out and take it. As I settled in, the waiter poured me tea. Pour. I didn't drink it. Instead, I raised my hand and asked for a glass of plain water. Free. Always free. Auntie leaned over and said, "Vera is really something now, a director at a big group, managing over a dozen stores, right?" Before I could respond, Uncle cut in, "That's right, Vera is the most accomplished one in our family. Jenna, you should learn from your sister." Jenna kept her head down, scrolling through her phone, saying nothing. My mom started organizing the toasts. "Dara doesn't drink, plain water is fine. Come on, big brother and sister-in-law, this toast is for you, it's been a while since we've all gathered." She was an excellent coordinator. The conversation flowed seamlessly, from my cousin's college entrance exams to my uncle's new apartment renovation, from my cousin's blind dates to my younger cousin's graduate school exams. Every topic skillfully skirted around a central point, me. Not that I wasn't allowed to speak, but my chances to talk were precisely scheduled between each rotation of the Lazy Susan. By the time it stopped, the topic had already slipped past me. I quietly drank plain water for 40 minutes. I counted the dishes on the table. 1 pot of flour chicken soup, served individually. 1 portion of braised sea cucumber with scallions, served individually. 1 steamed leopard coral grouper, market price. 2 roast ducks, full set. 1 bottle of Maotai, already on the 2nd bottle. 6 cold dishes, with hot dishes still arriving. I didn't calculate the exact amount, but my compliance audit instinct let me estimate the gross profit margin with just a glance at the menu. For a venue like Xinhua Pavilion, the overall gross profit margin is at least 60%. In other words, multiply the cost of this table's dishes by 2.5, and that's the price of this meal. My dad left the credit card used for the reservation at the counter, a common practice in high-end restaurants for groups of 10 or more. His card was on file. I committed every single word of this to memory. When the 2nd bottle of Maotai was half empty, my uncle's conversation started drifting toward me. He said, "Vera, is your company still hiring? Your cousin just graduated this year, majored in, what was it, business administration? See if there's a suitable position." I said, "Recruitment isn't my department. I can send you HR's email address." My uncle's expression froze for half a second. My mother immediately chimed in, "Hey, send the email first, send the email first." Then she shifted the topic, asking about third uncle's wife's recent back trouble. The Lazy Susan started spinning again. I knew they were paving the way. Every casual chat was groundwork, every person who praised me for being successful was laying another brick for the final blow. This wasn't a family reunion dinner, it was a targeted rights offering, and I was the sole subscriber. Jenna put down her phone just as the 2nd bottle of Maotai was nearly empty. She'd had at least 4 glasses, her face flushed, her gaze already unfocused. She looked at me across the round table and flashed a smile she thought was sincere, but one I'd seen far too many times. "Sis." The entire table fell silent. "Sis, you know about my shop." She paused, tracing circles on the tablecloth with her finger. "It's a loss. All the money's gone down the drain. I'm looking for a job now, but you know how the market is these days." My mom cleared her throat. Not the kind from a cold, the kind that meant get to the point. Jenna looked up at me. Sis, could you lend me 100,000 to tide me over first? I'll pay you back once I find a job. If I find it, I'll return it. This is one of the oldest catchphrases in my family. Ever since I started waiting tables at 15, this "if I find it, I'll return it" has come up at least 7 times, and not once has it been honored. I didn't answer right away. I picked up the glass of plain water, took a sip, and set it down. Jenna, I'm not exactly flush with cash right now either, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but once the round table fell silent, everyone could hear it. Jenna's face darkened. My mom immediately stepped in with a smile to smooth things over. Oh, let's not talk about this during the meal, not now. Come on, have some fish, it'll get fishy once it's cold. The lazy Susan started turning, but this time, the topic didn't spin away. Everyone's chopsticks moved, but everyone's ears stayed right where they were. My father set down his glass. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, moving slowly, like those leaders on TV about to announce a major decision. He looked at me, his expression not stern, not angry, but a kind of benevolence that he believed made him very reasonable. Vera, Dad wants to talk to you about something. I turned my water glass, the bottom scraping softly against the tablecloth. Dad's factory, you know, foreign trade hasn't been easy these past few years. He paused, as if waiting for the words to sink in. Last month, we landed a big order, custom uniforms for Maotai, 80,000 pieces. But the client's payment terms are 6 months, and we have to front the fabric costs ourselves. He pulled a document folder from the briefcase behind him, took out a printed contract, and slid it across the turntable. Black text on white paper, 3 pages, with a crease in the bottom right corner. Dad needs someone to be a joint guarantor. It's not asking you to put up money, just sign your name to prove you're capable. Not asking you to put up money. I'd heard that before. I heard it when my sister wanted to open a bakery, when my mom wanted to renovate the old house back home, when my dad bought that Camry. Back then he said, it's just a cosign, the bank just needs to see you have a steady job. I ended up paying off the last 8 months of that car loan when I was 24. Because aren't you the one managing money at the company? A little squeeze from your fingers would be enough. I stared at the contract, but didn't pick it up. Joint and several liability guarantee, the guarantor unconditionally assumes full responsibility for the debtor's obligations, and the creditor may directly demand repayment from the guarantor without first pursuing the debtor. This is the type of clause I track down in audit reports every day. And now, that very clause was in the hands of the man across from me, pushed across the table to my side. The entire table fell silent like a morgue. My father's hand was still resting on the lazy Susan, its edge stopped right in front of me. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me. My aunt's chopsticks hung midair, my cousin held up her phone, unsure whether she was filming the food or filming me. My father added with a smile, his voice low, but every word landed on the table like staples, a harmonious family brings prosperity to all. I set down my glass. I didn't look at the contract. I looked at Jenna, who was scrolling through her phone with her head down. I looked at my mom, who was pouring tea for my third uncle, pouring it so full that the tea spilled over onto the saucer. I looked at my dad, whose smile was still there, but the muscles at the corners of his mouth were already tightening. So this isn't a family reunion dinner. I said it. My voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Compliance audit training had taught me to keep my heart rate below 70 in any confrontation. This wasn't a gift, but muscle memory forged through hundreds of supplier negotiations and countless financial inquiries. It's for me to sign. My dad's smile faded a little. What kind of talk is that? Isn't this just the family sitting down to discuss things together? Dad's in a tough spot, you can't just stand by and do nothing, can you? When you were little. When I was little and had a fever, my sister gave me her fever medicine. I finished his sentence for him. Mom already told me. My mom's face went pale for a moment. I read the message history in that group, I said. You created a group without me, named Vera's Homecoming. Uncle asked in it, will she refuse to come? Mom, you said, no, she's soft-hearted. Third uncle asked, should we tell her there will be others? You said, no, once everyone's here, she won't be able to leave out of politeness. The chopsticks on the table came to a complete halt. Jenna said, let's order the expensive dishes before she arrives, so by the time she gets here, they can't be cancelled. Jenna's head shot up. Her lips moved several times, but in the end, not a single sound escaped. Uncle said, she has a steady job, and she's not married with no kids, so she must be well off. I turned to look at Uncle, and he immediately averted his gaze. Mom, you said, Vera should be grateful we're giving her this chance to come home. As of today, it's been 2 years and 11 months since I last set foot in this house. And the chance you gave me, turns out it was this. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and placed it on the table, screen facing up, without unlocking it. The group chat name glowed quietly in the notification bar. My mom finally took her hand off the teapot. Her lips were trembling slightly, but the words that came out were still steady, like a machine that never breaks down. Vera, listen to your mother. These are all misunderstandings. I just wanted to give you a chance to come home. I wanted the whole family to get together, so you told me there were only 4 people. I cut her off. It was the first time I had interrupted someone tonight. Not out of anger, but because I didn't want to hear another variation of the family takes care of family tune. My father's face had completely changed. Not with anger, but with an aggression born from the shame of having his lie exposed in public. Vera, what kind of attitude is that? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm just stating the facts. Facts? What facts? The fact is you've grown too big for your britches and look down on your family. You sit in an air-conditioned office while your father stands on the factory floor for over 10 hours a day. Your sister lost money on her shop and you didn't help her one bit. Is this how you act as a daughter? His voice grew louder, loud enough that the next booth over could probably hear. I knew this kind of voice. It was the way a person, when they have no logic to stand on, fills the gap with volume. My uncle spoke up, Vera, your father hasn't had it easy. Uncle, you borrowed $200,000 from my dad last year and still haven't paid it back. Am I right? Uncle opened his mouth. You told third uncle, anyway, his daughter has a steady job, she can pay it back when the time comes. I said this while looking at Uncle. He didn't deny it. Because he couldn't deny it, the person who had spoken was right at this table, third uncle's wife, the mother of my cousin Leah. She was sitting across from me at that moment, head down, peeling a shrimp, pretending to be a statue. Third uncle set down his chopsticks. He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, as if seeing me for the first time. My father stood up. The chair scraped against the floor tiles with a harsh screech. Vera, are you here to eat today, or to pick a fight? I stood up too. No chair scraping. I took the credit card out of my pocket, placed it on the table, and slid it onto the Lazy Susan. The turntable rotated a half-turn and stopped in front of my father. Dad, I'm not here to pick a fight. I'm here to tell you that I won't sign that document. As for today's meal, I'll only pay for my own portion. The plain water I drank was free, so I won't pay a cent for that. This meal was your invitation from the start. Your credit card is on file at the counter. The bill will come to you. After saying this, I picked up my phone, turned around, and was about to leave. Vera. It was my mother's voice. I stopped. Not out of fear, but because I had heard that tone in her voice before, on the night I had a fever at age 7, she called my name just like that. Gentle, pleading, making a child feel that disobeying would make them the worst person in the world. You're just leaving like this? I turned around. She sat there, her eyes reddened, but the tears hadn't fallen yet. She was a master of crying scenes, never letting the tears fall before the lines. Mom, let me ask you one last thing. I looked at her. When you say harmony in the family brings prosperity, whose family are you talking about? And whose prosperity? She didn't answer. I pulled open the door of the private room. A waiter stood in the hallway, probably in his early 20s, holding a bill folder. When he saw me, he instinctively stepped aside. I glanced at the name tag on his chest, Ethan. I paused half a step in front of him and lowered my voice to say the last thing of the night, please send the bill for the Plum Garden room to that gentleman. He's the one who made the reservation, and his card is already on file at the front desk. I only had a glass of tap water, it's free, no need to settle separately. As I walked out of the main entrance of Xinhua Pavilion, the autumn night wind rushed into my collar. The parking lot lights were a stark white, and my car sat alone in the corner. I pulled open the door, got in, but didn't start the engine. I stared at the steering wheel, the sticky note was still there. One meal, then home. One meal. Going home. My phone buzzed. Group chat. My mom. Jenna. Uncle. Third uncle. Cousin. A string of red notifications crowded the screen. I didn't need to open them to know the content. From "how could you do this" to "you're so disappointing" to "just apologize to your dad and this will blow over." Standard procedure, standard wording, like a travel reimbursement form I'd audited countless times, every line so familiar it made me sick. I didn't leave the group chat. I flipped my phone over, screen down, and set it on the passenger seat. Started the engine. On the way out of the parking lot, my phone buzzed twice more. I didn't look. When I got home, I took a shower, brewed a cup of Kenyan coffee, and sat on the balcony to finish it. The phone didn't buzz again. The next morning, I woke up to find 67 new messages in the Family Harmony Brings Prosperity group chat. I scrolled through them all from start to finish, not a single one asked, "Bara, are you okay?" I left the group chat. That autumn, my father's garment factory was sued by a partner factory over its accounts. It wasn't because of me, it was over another payment that had long been overdue. What my father said at the dinner table about Meituan's big order was true, but his factory had already been crippled by the chain of triangular debts from upstream suppliers before taking that order. The claim about advancing fabric costs was half true and half false. The advance was real, but even after paying it, the previous shortfall couldn't be covered. The joint guarantee contract wasn't meant to clear the books, it was meant to rob Peter to pay Paul. The court summons arrived at my hometown in November. My mother called me, and for the first time I answered. She sobbed over the phone, "Your father's been taken in, your sister's run off, what am I supposed to do all alone?" I said, "Mom, I can help you find a lawyer. I'll cover the costs." She was silent on the other end of the line for a long time. Then she said, "Can't you just pay off the rest of the mortgage? The house is partly yours too." Not, "Can you help me?" It was, "Can't you just pay off the rest of the mortgage?" As if it were my responsibility. As if it had always been my responsibility, and I had simply been slow to fulfill it. I said, "I can recommend a lawyer." She hung up. I didn't call back. Later, I heard that the house back home had been foreclosed. My mother moved to a small town on the outskirts, renting a 2-bedroom, 1-living-room old apartment. Jenna didn't go far, she was in the neighboring city, working at a bakery. Not as the owner, but making bread. The croissants she baked, according to those who had tried them, were indeed quite good. My father was sentenced to 11 months. I went to see him once. Through the glass, he looked 10 years older than I remembered. He didn't apologize, and I didn't ask. I just told him that I had already settled the lawyer's fees and had even arranged post-prison employment counseling for him. After hearing this, he lowered his head and said one sentence, "You've never been like someone from this family since you were a child." I said, "Dad, you're right. I'm not." I stood up and didn't look back. I never returned to that home again. Because long before that, in the drawn-out years when I learned to scrutinize every expense and question where every cent went, I had long ceased to be the Vera who would silently hand over her wallet at a family reunion dinner. I paid for nothing at that meal. But in the end, I had finally settled everything.